Hey guys, welcome to season 2, episode 1 of That Damn Wall. My name's Anna. If we haven't met before, I'm really glad you've joined me. In this episode, it will be a recording with John Toms. Now, let me just say, we laughed so much when we filmed this episode. We kept hitting the table with our hands, and when we did that, a connection came loose from the recording. So the audio isn't that great, but the content is, so make sure that you watch it to the end or listen to it depending on how you're listening to the podcast. I hope it's really helpful for you. This episode, we're talking about authenticity, staying fully connected and being fully present, enjoying and being comfortable in your own skin. It's a journey that I've gone on, it's a journey John's gone on, and we're so excited to be able to release our story, and I hope it helps you. Enjoy. Hello everyone and welcome to season 2, episode 1 of That Damn Wall. It is so good to be back. I'm back with Mr. John Toms. You may recognise him and his voice from season 1.
Made it back to the podcast. I'm on video back. This time.
Here we are, in the flesh. It's been a while since we've had an episode, and I've just taken some time over the last 6 months, I guess, to just recap and recover from what a year, 2020, 2021.
It's been a year.
It's been one heck of a year. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's definitely been a time to take stock and reflect and put those boundaries in place to just recover a bit. How was it for you? How's it been for you?
I've had moments of being grateful for it. Like, I can see the benefits of what the year's done for us, but it's not been the best year of my life. But yeah, definitely ups, definitely downs, and so much time to look internally again. So I have been grateful for that.
Because I think with that stuff, it's so helpful. If you guys know John at all, we both love to talk about emotional health, and we both love to keep checking in on how we're doing. But I think as well, the problem, what I found with this year, is too much of that time. I just get in the pits about it, and comparison creeps in, and especially a year, I was saying to John earlier, a year where social media is more at our fingertips than ever, because we're just at home and it's easier to be, it's more accessible, I think, whereas at work, it's a bit more boundaried, isn't it? And so on a Zoom screen, you're seeing yourself, and there's more of this self time, which is good, but also really hard. So I guess in this podcast, we're just going to chat. We're just going to catch up and chat and talk about our breakthroughs as well as points of contest, really. What would you say has been your biggest breakthrough this year? Do you have one?
Gosh, yeah. Let me just check my list. Got a few for the podcast. We've spent a long time trying not to giggle while doing this, by the way, so just bear with us. We're really serious.
Yeah, I know we're still too serious, but
it's either that side
bring back the joy.
Or the other. I think I'm always great. It's weird because I'm always grateful for hard times once I've come out the other end of them. Like, during them, it's horrific. I'm just like, why am I here in the pit again?
Yeah.
But from my past and from my experiences, I know that when you get through it, like, joy is on the other side.
Yeah.
And joy, I believe, is always accessible.
Yeah.
So I think moving through the hard times, horrible. Can't recommend it to anyone.
Yeah.
But as in being in the hard times, but moving through them and getting to the other side, it's amazing. Like, it's amazing what we can do when we really push into those testing times and those painful times. And when we learn to process pain, when we learn to be vulnerable, when we learn to reach out, like, those are the moments where you get your breakthrough.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's been having to do that a lot more on my own. Massive extrovert, similar to you. Really like to be around people. So when I was told I had to isolate, I was like, this is terrible.
Yeah, it's so triggering. It really triggered me, for sure. And for me, it brought up loads of stuff. Like, my biggest fear was growing up was being forgotten, and I'd realised that loads of that just comes from an insecurity that I was forgettable, but we're not. And I think, going for me anyway, lockdown 1, going in, I was just so triggered, and I was like, actually, as painful as that was at the time, like you're saying, when you go through it, you're then like, actually, there's real beauty in that, because when you get through to the other side and you've worked on it and you've processed it and not hidden away from it. And I think in particularly lockdown 1, it was easier to hide because we didn't know how long we'd been in it for.
Yeah,
and then as we carried on going, it's like, I might as well face this. I went back into therapy in lockdown 1.
Same.
Did you? Yeah.
Still in it now.
Yeah, same.
And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
Like, I think anyone being told, like, the whole world's been told to do the opposite of what we were created to do. So we were created for connection, and our governments have been like, you're going to have the opposite of that this year. Like, you're going to have no ability to connect in person on a regular basis. You're going to be in isolation. And I'm not saying I was against that. It was a great idea. We didn't want to catch COVID, but we were created for connection. We were created for each other, and we need these moments. And finally, we can be back in these moments of actually being in the same house and things now that things have eased a little bit. So it's I think the reason it was so hard mentally is because you're being told the opposite of what you're created to do, and that was really hard for me mentally, because it's like, well, I know what my needs are. I've spent like my 20s trying to work out who I am, what I need as a person, what I can give as a person, and then suddenly all that's stripped away. So suddenly the John that knows how to live like a healthy life, as it were, it's not an option.
And you just, how do you even live that? Like for you, how was it? How was that? How did you get to a point then where you could be healthy in a place that felt counter?
So, I mean, incredibly grateful for my relationship with God, because, I mean, that's all I had in moments, because I lived with one other person, but, I mean, there was times in the first intense lockdown, you just weren't seeing people on a regular basis, and for me, that is just not the one. Like, it's really not. So I think I've lent on God even more than ever. And I've always had that relationship with him consistently, but then practically speaking, trying to connect with other people, it was things like FaceTimes and Zooms, which, to be honest, I don't feel super connected on that. I need to see people. But I guess I've surprised myself with the resilience, and I think we've all done amazingly well. And if you're watching this, like, you've done so well. Like, you've just gone through an absolute global pandemic, and you're through like the other side. Like, we're on the other side of it now, hopefully. So I'm actually quite proud of myself. I don't know what my breakthrough was. I think that's what you asked me, but I do feel proud of myself, because it's like you've just gone through something really hard.
Well, I think that is the breakthrough, because I think we were saying earlier when we were chatting about this, like, as a culture in the UK particularly, it's the classic thing of the stiff upper lip, and so I think for a nation, our breakthrough has been facing this stuff and having to sit in that. That in itself is a breakthrough, because otherwise it'd be like, come on, make do admit, let's get on with it, let's clap for the NHS and then push it down. But actually we've had to face difficult conversations with our families or our housemates, or been uncomfortable with society. And we were talking about how social media has really ramped up during this time, and I was thinking yesterday, the beauty of things like TikTok is it's so brought out creativity, like especially with the young people. It's like I don't think we're young people anymore. We can't even work it. But it's we're young in heart, long in the tooth.
We're just striving to be young.
But I think it's brought out so much creativity. But the downside of it is that's when comparison can creep in, and there are so many perfectionism, how things are done, how we're presented, and this whole thing about, I did a podcast last season about wearing the mask, and how it's so ironic that it's like you leave the house, don't forget your mask, and how almost my whole story anyway I used to wear the mask, be seen how I thought people wanted to see me. And although I'm talking about this in metaphorical mask, obviously there are benefits of us wearing masks, but I mean, what are we hiding behind? What's the thing that we're putting up to the world? And for me in social media, I've really struggled with the fact that so many filters have come out, and it's like, look this type of way, when we're already struggling enough as we are. And I think we've just been reflecting on the different platforms, for example, TikToks that come out, or Clubhouse, and for me, one of my breakthroughs was Clubhouse. I really struggled when that first came out, of like using my voice. I really believe that God wants to use everyone's got something to say, but then this thing struck up in me of, what if it's not good enough? What if I'm not heard? What if the platform isn't like? What are your thoughts on that?
I find social media, gosh, I find it exhausting in many ways. Like, I love it. I'm obviously on it all the time. You can tell, like, pretty much
screen time.
Screen time exposing. So there's definitely elements of me absolutely loving it, but I am really trying to be the most authentic version of myself in life in general. Like, that's an aim in my life. That's a goal in my life, to become the most authentic version of John. It's very hard to do it on social media, and especially with the comparison. I feel like I'm very different on social media to how it should be run in a sense. If you want to be successful on social media, I'm probably never going to be that, because you have to put filters on. I don't want to put filters on. The reason I don't want to do that is because it's lying to myself and it's lying to my audience. So I don't want to see the audience. I don't want to show the audience a fake version of myself. Like, I want to show them the most real self as possible. So if I'm putting a filter over my pasty English skin, it's just lying. It's like, this is the colour of my skin. Like, yes, I could make myself look a bit more tanned, but I don't particularly want to do that, because it's not kind to me, it's not kind to you. So that's like a simple thing I do. And then I'm just not the best at like editing videos. I'm not the best at like writing the best caption. So I just feel exhausted by it constantly. I'm like, I'm just going to be the best version of me. But there's this constant pressure to be better, to make your page look better. It needs to be aesthetically pleasing. It needs to have the best fonts, consistent fonts. I can't remember the font I used yesterday to today, so they're never going to match.
Yes.
Sorry, that was a bit of a rant.
No, I think that's got me thinking though, because like we're very similar, aren't we, in lots of ways. You're leaning off camera there. Come on,
I'm keen to be seen.
2 metre gap.
Sorry, fleeing the scene.
Fleeing the scene.
I'm like backing out of this podcast. I'm done.
See you later. But I think like we're two people that are quite similar. We're both extroverts. But in the sense of we present ourselves. I mean, I'm doing this podcast, so I've literally got a stain on my jumper. You can see the ring light in the background. And I'm not saying the way that we do things is perfect. I do not use my social media very well at all. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is how do we become more authentic on social media? How do we stay true to ourselves? How do we not take... Like for me, I'm so sporadic with it. Like if I'm feeling something, I'll post it. If I'm not, I can't be bothered. And how do we have a healthy relationship with social media?
Gosh, that's a big question. Well, I think
whilst staying connected in a pandemic.
Yeah, I think it's doing that check before. Like, why am I posting this? Like, why have I just posted that?
Yeah, what's this feeding?
Yeah, what's that feeding? Is that feeding my ego? Is that feeding my need for affirmation? Is that feeding my am I trying to get likes or views or shares or whatever? Like whatever you're keen to have. So I think it's having that check before. Like, is this actually going to benefit other people?
Yeah.
So that's the check I try and do. Like, people seem to find me funny here and there, so I'm like, okay, let's post a funny video because they seem to enjoy that. Yeah. Like, if I can make someone laugh and smile for the day, then that's great. If that's just me being myself, but I'm not going to do that at the what's the word?
Cost.
Yeah, the cost of my authenticity.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to put something out there that's not me. So if I can be me and make someone laugh, that is a win. That's an absolute win because I'm being the best version of myself and it's making someone laugh. What an absolute bonus.
With that though, I mean, we both studied at ministry school in California and that's very much encourages it being me. But I remember when I was in my 20s, I would say the biggest gift that I have now, which I genuinely never thought I'd be able to say, was I'm actually comfortable in my own skin. And that is a gift because I used to be so uncomfortable. I felt like I was in a different body. I just did not feel connected to myself. So I think it's quite easy for us to now sit here and say, just be me. But I think a lot of people watching this could be like, what? That's quite risky. Yeah. Like, what if that's not accepted? Mm-hmm. So how do we, what would you say is a first step for us to be me? Like for us to be ourselves? Because that's a big risk for some people.
Like, that's really good actually, because people might not have context for this, but I would say we've both put in the work and are continuing to put in the work. Yeah. So from our stories that we've shared and shared experiences, like we've been through similar journeys of becoming ourselves. And I think life is about becoming the best version of yourself. And I think God did an amazing job when He created us.
Sorry, I'm laughing
that's
because
an absolute cat.
My cat's crawling on the scratch bits.
If you can hear it, that's just what's he called again?
Bubba.
I called him Cuthbert, but. What's that?
When Bubba goes for a drink, it sounds like he's doing last rounds at the pub.
Yeah, literally. They get me an absolute beer. I don't even drink beer. I don't know why I said that.
Get me the communion
one.
one.
A gin and Tom.
Yeah, I'll get you one. A gin and John.
A gin and John. Yeah, absolutely. I was on an absolute.
Sorry,
you were. Back to me. And back to me. So I was saying we both went on similar journeys. We've been out to ministry school. So what I'm saying is I guess we've both gone on this journey of like facing ourselves, like facing the inner beings of ourselves, seeing the stuff we don't like, seeing the stuff we need to work on. Oh, and that's what I was saying. God did an amazing job when He created us, but we as humans, we are so imperfect. We're always going to be imperfect. So if you're seeing this invisible line, in fact, it's not even that invisible. Like the line for perfection is thrown in our face all the time. It's like up here. It's impossible. Yeah. We will never get to perfection. So I think for me, it's realizing I am so imperfect. Like I look imperfect. My emotional health is imperfect, my mental health is imperfect, my character is imperfect. It always is going to be. But my love from God, and that's where I get my affirmation, that's where I get my whole identity is in God. He's always going to love me for who I am, because we don't work for our love, we don't perform for our love, we don't need to earn our love from God. So that gives me such a peace in my own life that everything else is just me getting to go on this fun journey of like, how can I become the best version of John? Like, how can I become the most authentic? And I don't need to do that for anyone's approval. Because that's not what I need to work for. So
I think that's a good point, because I think so many... Did I just cut you off then?
No, I was done. I was like, where are we going to go after this? Please cut me off.
Well, I was just thinking about that performance culture, and I think even in school we were taught to perform well. What are your grades? What are you... And so then when we come out of that, we're still in this environment of like, of achieving perfection, like you say, which we're never going to. And so it can be uncomfortable sometimes to sit in that place when you've had a bad day, had a bad thought, had a bad conversation, it's just not gone to plan, to sit in that place of like, I'm so loved as I am. Because I think it's quite rare for us, particularly in like the secular world, for that to be a thing. But actually I remember someone saying to me in California, shame makes a mockery of the cross, and it really challenged me, because it's basically saying Jesus didn't pay enough for your love. And so I think for us to be us is also for us to be in acceptance of ourselves, that we're not perfect, and that's absolutely fine, but like you said, Jesus is. And so we can sit in that place of like, I remember Abby Stumble actually in America saying, she used to walk into school, there was a season where she'd walk into ministry school and just be like, God, would you clothe me in your glory? I'm so imperfect. I just want to be clothed in you. And it just takes that pressure off if you've had a bad day, if you're having a bad lockdown. I've been like, oh, there's just so much grace. And I think the fear is that we'll abuse that grace. But if we know it's from a place of being loved by God, it's not abuse of it.
Absolutely. And I think, and it is exhausting trying to be perfect. And I found myself slipping into that again and again in lockdown, because I think shame's just the worst.
Yeah.
Like, it's the absolute worst. If you're ever hearing lots of like shoulds in your head, like, come on John, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. Like, should is so often shame, isn't it? And shame will tell you you're not enough. Like, shame is I am not enough. Like, that's basically what it is. So every time you're telling yourself you're not enough, you're going to be striving to be enough. Where actually, if we can just get to that place of relaxing into our authentic selves and knowing that we're enough, as soon as we get out of bed in the morning, it's like, John, you're doing your very best. Like, stop trying to be something you're not. It's exhausting. And it is. I've got Malteser in my mouth. I had a cheeky Malteser in the break.
A little break when the camera stopped talking.
Now I feel like I'm like trying to get out of my teeth. In Jesus' name, come out. But yeah, it's getting to that place where you can just be comfortable in who you are each day, because then you're not striving for approval. And I remember the exhausting times, because we were sharing, we've both gone on a similar journey of like really looking within and trying to deal with the stuff that was a bit messy, like self-acceptance, learning to love who I am. Because I used to strive for approval. Like, I was always looking for approval because I didn't know who I was. Like, I hadn't discovered who John was. So
and then when you're looking to people to say this is who you are, you're like, you play into that hand, still feeling like you don't know who you are, who they want you to be.
Absolutely, which again is exhausting. Like, it's tiring.
Absolutely.
And that's not where we should find our identity. But it's being kind to myself. It's having self-compassion, and it's doing the work. Like, definitely. What does doing the work look like for you?
I mean, it's such a good question. I think it's similar to what you said. You're creeping off screen there again, John. You need to show me.
So sorry.
Doing the work for me looks like actively checking in. And I think I have a mate, and we'll call each other every now and again, and we'll be like, what are the lies you believe in? Because sometimes we forget that internal narrative, and we can just be so bombarded with our own lies. And so I do that. I speak to my therapist, and they're really like straight on the areas. They know my story, so they're very perceptive on what I need to work on. And it actually looks like me stepping out of the way and believing God's word over what I think about myself. And I think I hope I would never say that I'm full of pride, but I do think pride gets in the way when we're like, no, I'm really not good enough, because we don't actually have the final say over that, Jesus does. And if we're hidden in Christ, which we are, we're good enough because he says we are. And it's so hard sometimes to do the work and just receive his word is better than my opinion of myself. So for me, doing the work, that's like actively engaging with my emotions. And if I feel an insecurity, which is often it, for me, especially in lockdown, I have been faced with myself, and it's like, okay, cool, that's an insecurity of mine, and that's actually an invitation for more healing, and that's not a negative thing. But I think with the perfectionist thing and the social media and how I come across, it's not to say just be a whatever and it'll be fine, but I would encourage you that if you're wanting to be known and if you're wanting to be yourself, it looks like stepping out and doing that, even if that's not accepted by people, which is scary because no one wants to be rejected. But you made that good point earlier about when we were talking earlier about the mask, and if that's received, go into that a little bit more.
Yeah, well, I guess whatever version you put out of yourself is what you're advertising to the world, as it were. So if this, for example, my hand is your fake version of yourself, so you're being someone else and you're putting that mask on, not your corona mask, this is like your identity mask, you're putting that version of yourself out there. Any love that you're getting from people, any acceptance, any approval, it's not actually getting into the like depths of who you are. So you're actually just putting a false pretense out there. So I'm not putting out John, I'm not being vulnerable, so actually no love is flowing through to who I am. So it's not affirming the identity of who God says I am. So if I'm putting that version of myself out there, it's just, I mean, it's literally pointless. So any acceptance, any approval, any love you get, that doesn't exist. That's a fake version of yourself. So again, it's like, the more healthy, whole and accepting we can become of ourselves, the better we can be there for other people, the better we can go into our communities and really, really love the people around us. And we were saying that earlier, weren't we? We don't do this for fun. Like, this conversation isn't really for us. Like, we're really passionate about this because we've worked through this ourselves. We're still working through it, and I said that earlier, I'll be doing this. We know it, and I said I'll be doing this my whole life. Like, I'm going to constantly be on this journey my whole life of becoming the best version of who I am, because I'm never going to make it. Because I'm not reaching for perfection. I'm reaching for acceptance, and I'm reaching to impact those around me through what I've learned.
Yeah, and I think, but I do think, when going back to social media thing, I think that's the attractive thing about being yourself and showing the world who you are, because when you are authentic, it creates, authenticity again breeds connection. And so when you're vulnerable or when you're authentic, and I'm not saying you should go around, obviously be careful about who you share your whole life with and who you are. I think we should always be authentic, but I don't know if we should always be super vulnerable with everyone around us.
Don't do that.
But I think the more we are connected with ourselves, the more, like you say, that mask, people aren't, it's like we were talking about the imposter thing, and if you've been loved because of the mask you present, and you'll always feel like an imposter because you always feel like, I should be wearing this, I should be looking away or speaking away or sounding a certain way, and you'll always feel like you're not actually been received because it's the mask that's been received, not you. But the biggest thing for my life, and the reason why I do what I do, is because I know the power of just being like, I'm going to show up as I am, and whoever accepts that, they're worthy of being in my life, and if they don't, that's actually not on me, that's actually a reflection of them. Without sounding savage, or some relationships and friendships I've had to cut out purely because if I can't be me, then that's the signal, isn't it? Which is hard.
And it's a weird thing, isn't it? Like I remember when I was younger, like my whole goal was just to be accepted. Like at school, in secondary school, I remember, like at no point was I like, who are you, John? Who do you want to be today? I was like, I will morph into whatever you want me to be right now. Just love me, just accept me, let me sit with you in the playground, let me sit with you at the lunch table. And that's what I was training myself from a young age. So 11, 12, 13, 14, love me, accept me, be my friend. And you carry that into your 20s. Like our mind is so powerful. Like the neural pathways that we create when we're growing up, it's wild. And into an adult, like the stuff that's firing up in our brains when we think certain ways is wild.
Those patterns that we establish in embed.
It's crazy. So to reverse those, and that's why therapy is so helpful. I'm so grateful that I can do that. It's a privilege to do therapy, and I love getting to process those emotions, process those thoughts, because I need to get out of some of those patterns and stay out of some of those patterns. But none of this has been on my own. Like every part of it has been vulnerability and intimacy with other people. It's like I need to be vulnerable with you, and I need to let you into me. You see, like I need you to see what's going on here, and I need to feel accepted for being who I truly am, not who I think I should be.
To approve someone else. And I think as well with what you say about the neural pathways, when it's kind of thinking two things: what does this thought? How is this thought serving me? And then what fruit is it producing? So is this thought triggering anxiety? Is it affirming a lie? Is it affirming an insecurity because I'd rather believe the insecurity rather than being vulnerable? And so, for example, with me, I was like, why would anyone actually want to hang out with me? So then I'd believe that insecurity because it was easier to believe that than believing someone would want to hang out with me, because then there's chance of rejection. So it's thinking, what's this thought feeding? And then what's the fruit on it? So if it then starts producing fear or doubt, you talk a lot about the feelings wheel. If it starts producing something negative, it's like, is this actually God's best for my life? Because I want to believe what's God's best. And again, it's setting aside our pride and just being like, God, if that's what you say, then I'd rather believe that. Talk a bit about the feelings wheel though, because that's quite helpful.
I love the feelings wheel. Yeah, I guess it's does it line up with what God's saying about you as well, just to tag off the back of that, like anything you feel, like feelings, I say often, and it's not I didn't come up with this, but feelings are not always facts. Like feelings are brilliant. Like you go through probably hundreds of them a day. I had a really feelings day yesterday of just so many up and down feelings. Not like hardly any of them were facts, especially when you're feeling anxious. Like anxiety is just you making up these horrible scenarios in your head that are very unlikely to happen, but if they feel so real in the moment. But I try and remind people feelings are not facts, and I think we can be quite And I don't mean this in an insulting way, I just don't think we were trained on emotions. I think we can be quite ignorant to our emotions sometimes, and we just go to the like, oh, I'm happy, or I'm sad, or I'm low, or I'm high. And it's like, there are so many emotions.
Yeah.
So the feelings wheel is a wheel, Google it, it's great, and it will just have all the different emotions that will come out. So there'll be the simple ones in the middle, like happy, sad, angry, I can't remember what the other ones are now. Need to check it when I get home. And then there's loads of other ones around it that will literally get you to a point where you can identify and name what you're feeling. Because when you name that feeling, it doesn't mean you're necessarily agreeing with it, but you're actually giving voice to your heart. So you're actually giving language to it, and you're saying, oh, actually, I'm not feeling sad, I'm feeling insecure, and I'm feeling... It kind
of channels out from it, doesn't it? So it would say like sad, and then it would have the further ring around it would be insignificant, insecure, and then out of that would be fear or whatever.
So you'll go from so you'll go from sadness to insecure to insignificant, and you'll be like, okay, I'm not feeling sad. Like that's not my main emotion.
Yeah.
It's like I'm actually feeling really insignificant.
Yeah.
Why am I feeling insignificant? Is that the truth of who I am? No, I'm just feeling that way. So what do I need in this moment?
Yeah, looking at the need and looking at what was the trigger. I often think, if I'm feeling this kind of thing right now, what has there been a conversation that's triggered that? Is it something, is it an experience that's just happened? Mm-hmm. Have I just seen something online? Have I just remembered something from the past and immediately it comes in? And it's like, what are we partnering with? Because we can either agree with that. I was talking about shame yesterday with my therapist. Am I agreeing with that, or am I going to say, well, shame would mean makes a mockery of the cross? I'm like, what am I going to believe? And we actually have a decision to make sometimes on like, this, for me, I used to be so insecure. There's no way I would have gone on camera before with the stain on my top and a ring light reflection in the background, but I didn't care anymore. That's who I am. But I think, like, for me, you know, it's like actually that lie, that insecurity or that feeling has actually had its day. If there was a purpose in it, it served it. I'm not going to entertain it anymore. And sometimes we have to just be, we can sometimes make relationship with these thoughts because they're familiar, and then that familiarity is just, we partner because it's comfortable. It doesn't mean it's right, it's just habitual behavior. And so what would you recommend for people watching this that are like, man, I haven't just got one thought, I've got 10 of them and they're regular, and it's actually, it can be scary to disassociate with them.
Because we almost get into that. I guess we learn coping mechanisms, we learn ways to cope and to numb as well. Like we just want to check out sometimes. When you're feeling overwhelmed, you just want to check out, and that's why I encourage people to name it. Like when you don't know what's going on internally, it's terrifying, it's scary. We love control as humans. Like I think we were wired to like want control all the time. So naming it is a brilliant idea, because as soon as you name it, it takes the power away from it. So it's like, this doesn't have power over me. I'm not insignificant. That's not who I am. I'm not insecure. That's not who I am. That's just what I'm feeling.
Yeah, that's good.
So name it, true. But name it with someone. Like, and I've done this on my Instagram lately, like encouraging people to reach out. And it's not an easy thing to reach out at all. So I know I'm not just saying reach out like right now, because I know it's hard, but know you are worthy of someone else's time. So reach out and name what you're feeling. Just say to your friend, hey, I'm actually feeling really insignificant, because they're not connected to that feeling, so they don't feel, unless they're deeply empathizing with you, which hopefully they are, but they're not having the same feelings as you. You're having a really intense feeling, whereas they can come in at a completely different angle and be like, John, you're not insignificant, that's not who you are. And they can kind of like lower the stakes of that emotion that you're experiencing and actually just speak truth into you. So whenever you're going through something like this, isolation will tell you you're not enough, shame will tell you you're not enough. But if you can get around people that know you well and that you trust and that you feel safe with, they can speak the truth into you.
I was just about to say that, because I was wondering if you guys were thinking, that's cool, but how do I choose those people? And for me, that was definitely a process. I used to overshare all the time. I was like, well, someone just loved me, here's all my stuff, without actually thinking this is precious cargo and I'm going to hand it as a gift to someone that I trust. So I would say, think about like, who are the people in your life? What is the fruit of hanging out with that person or that group of friends? How do they make you feel? Do they encourage you? Are they champions of you? Do they, when you share a need, they actually turn it around onto themselves and their situation that they're going through? Which sometimes, you know, that's cool that they can share, but there's also a time of you being like, I just need to talk about me for a little bit, and then we can talk about because otherwise you've just let you that need's not been met. And it's okay to have a need. It's okay for everyone has needs without it becoming codependency, but we just say like, I'm gonna champion you, I'm gonna be in your life, the girl that I share my lives with. It's like we've committed to be in each other's lives, and so we share the stuff. And allow each other to have the mic for a bit. And so I would encourage you guys to think about, who am I giving the mic to, and what are they speaking into me, and what are they feeding? Are they feeding that? I used to have some mates that fed insecurities, and actually I was like, I don't know if this is helpful.
I like that about giving the mic.
Giving the mic. Hello.
Who are you giving the mic to? Me. But no, I think that's really good, and it's being clear in your communication. So if you're going to hang out with a friend, like one-on-one, for example, just be clear before. Just send a text and be like, "Hey mate, so glad we're catching up. Just to let you know, I've had a pretty rough night, didn't sleep. Could we just spend like the first bit chatting about how I'm feeling, because I'm not feeling great." So kind of set the expectations of the hang, because sometimes I used to be so powerless and so passive, and still can be sometimes, but it was definitely worse back in the day. I'd expect them to read my mind, so I would go to those kind of events, and I wouldn't set them up. I wouldn't set myself up for success. I wouldn't set them up for success. They think we're just hanging and chilling. So I go there, we're bantering, we're laughing.
A bag of issues.
Yeah, literally, I've got my absolute bag of absolute issues on my back, like Santa Claus. And I'm like, why are you not reading my mind? Why can you not see that I'm not okay? Why are you not asking that I'm not okay? And that was me being really, I guess that was me not feeling worthy of taking that time.
It's a vulnerable thing to say.
It's a really vulnerable thing.
Talk about my issues, because we don't want to be seen as a burden.
Excuse me, can you just make this about me, please? But it's really scary, because it's like, because and I actually had it yesterday. So I was FaceTiming two friends that I've been on a trip through Bethel. We've been to the Middle East together, and they could tell I wasn't okay from the start, but we had actually set up the call to talk about one of them specifically. So I was like, oh no, this is really bad. Like, there's no way can I make this about me. But they were like, no, John, this is okay. Like, you need to talk about this. They knew the situation that I was triggered by, so they were like, process. Like, let yourself process now. Shout out to Stacey and Erica, great friends. But it's been powerful in knowing that you're worthy. Because inside I was like, I'm not worthy for this right now. So I was pushing my needs aside. Where it's like, John, you have enough.
Yeah, but it's also that there is also kindness of thinking this person had set it up, but then the kindness of your mates to be like, no, we're actually good. Let's address this.
Because it's a tension, isn't it? It's like because it's I suppose a bit vulnerable saying this, but sometimes I can be quite a dominant person. So sometimes I do panic because I'm like, I have taken the spotlight for a while now. I'm an entertainer, so it's like I like entertaining people. So I do. Hello and welcome. Sometimes I do panic that I'm like, oh, have I been in the spotlight too late? Do I need to go back into the
That's hard though, isn't it? We were talking about...
Do you feel that, Anna?
Yeah.
Over to
you. Yes. Well, I do, because I was saying earlier, like, I felt like, I mean, I do have a big we've both got big personalities, and the good thing about that is it can be fun, but then the bad side of that, the side that I've struggled with, is I never want to be seen as too much. And
too much, not enough.
Too much,
constant
not enough.
Balance.
Constant balance. But I think that's because I used to use my bigness of my personality because I didn't feel enough, so I become bigger. Whereas now it's having that relationship of like, no, that's the past, Anna. This isn't coming out of me being big. This is me coming out of like, I'm powerfully communicating. Yeah. What would you say is, you mentioned it earlier, and I don't know if it's like language that everyone, particularly in the UK, uses, powerful people and powerless people?
Yeah. Well, you just said something really good that I just wanted to tag on to.
Oh, please.
But then I'm trying to remember what you said. Well, it's that remembering who you are. So that was the old Anna you were saying. Yeah. So in those moments when so yesterday I was checking into the old John. It's like the old John is insecure. The old John doesn't feel worthy. The old John doesn't feel enough. So it's that check in your heart of like, no, John, like this is, because sometimes you can go through like loads of healing, like years of it, and years of therapy, and years of breakthrough, and years of all the stuff you've worked on, and then you feel like you've gone 10 steps backwards, but you haven't. You haven't, and I just want to affirm you, if you ever feel like that, just try and stand in the truth that you've grown in that moment, because it's remembering, it's like, no, that's not who I am anymore. Like, that's who I used to be, but actually this is the current John that's doing his best. Like, this is the current John that's going to be kind to himself. This is the current John that's going to try and be powerful. What I mean by powerful, so powerful and powerless, is kind of in the way that you view yourself, but also the way that you communicate. So powerless was going to that coffee with no needs whatsoever. So inside I had these needs. My heart needed to be heard. My heart needed to be listened to. My heart needed my friend to just listen to me for a good 10 minutes. So a powerful bit of communication could have been ringing my mate and saying, hey mate, just to let you know, not doing great, haven't slept well, feeling not enough at all, feeling less than enough, like, can we just have a little chat at the start? That would feel really powerful. That would be a huge win for me, because I do struggle to do that still. Like, it still feels uncomfortable, but I know it's good for me. Whereas powerless would just be turning up and being a bit of a victim and just sitting there like moping, like, why is this not about me? Like, why are we just laughing and giggling?
When you hadn't communicated.
When I hadn't communicated it, so why would he know? And I haven't felt worthy enough to communicate in a powerful way. So does that work for an example?
I think so. I think when I first heard the powerful and powerless, I actually didn't like it because it triggered insecurity. What if I'm not powerful? But actually it was like, let me learn what it means. Let me learn the language. So for me, an example would be assumption, which I guess is what John's saying. It's like going to something and not letting everyone, not being passive, and not thinking everyone in the room's just going to assume. Oh dear, there we go.
We've got a screensaver.
Not assuming that everyone here knows what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and letting them do my thinking. That's powerless, because as soon as someone's doing your thinking for you, you've given them the power to decide the outcome. Whereas if I communicate my need, I'm in control of the outcome.
That's really good, and you've handed the power over in that moment.
And I think that's what sorry.
That was it. That's all I had to say.
And I think that's the thing with this whole thing on like being comfortable with ourselves. It's been comfortable enough to say I value myself enough to communicate and value myself enough to be powerful. But this is all a journey. I mean, we're not perfect at it. We're just talking about 4 or 5 or 6 years of experience of practicing it, and it's a daily decision to make. And some days I'm the most victim person. Actually, my therapist said to me last month, I think, or last week maybe, I can't, it's been that long, lockdown is long, but he was talking about pity, and he was like, Anna, the thing is, he was talking about shame, and he was like, that actually links with a pity party, and I'd never linked the two before, but he was saying that you can sit in this thing on, I've done this thing, or my past says this, I should have tried, all the shoulds, I should have tried harder, and then you just sit feeling in a bit of a pity party, rather than, okay, that has happened, I can't change it, but I can change the outcome of where I'm going. And that again has been powerful. I'm like, right, I'm done with these insecurities now. How are they serving me? They're boring. I need to move forward and receive what God's got, and he's always got something better.
And just remembering we're not aiming for perfection. So, and even as we're talking, it's like, how can I give the best version of the story? It's like, well, no, actually, I'm gonna constantly mess up. Like, I'm doing my best. Like, I'm doing my absolute best, and I'm not gonna get this right, because it's not about getting it right. Like, these are great tips that we've learned that we find helpful, but it does not mean we're getting them right all the time at all. Like,
it's because we get them wrong that we learn to give the advice.
And then you get to grow in those moments. It's like those moments where I do feel shame. It's like, great, shame has come up against me. I don't feel enough. How can I get out of that pit of absolute despair? And then you get to work through it again, and whether that's with you or your therapist or your friends, like it's such, those are the opportunities for growth. And then the really exciting part for me, you become like really aware of what other people need, and this is why I love this message of emotional health so much, and I'm so grateful for God and his message of identity and family and acceptance, because it gives you all of this language that helps other people so much. So people that really do not feel enough, like you can sense that, and then you get to stand in the gap for them, because it's like people that are a bit younger than you perhaps, that haven't got to go on that journey then, and they're so excited, because it's like, I've been there, like I know what it's like, and I'm not perfect, I've not arrived, but I've got some tools that are going to help you. So it helps you become aware of what other people need.
I think that's why we keep banging on this drum, particularly through Instagram. That's the form of communication right now. But anyone that talks to us individually, I say that we're a duo, it's just we do similar things, but I think that's why we're so passionate about saying you are enough, you are loved. Jesus meets the need, because we have been in that place where it's like, and we continue to be in that place where we feel it, and so we know the truth of it from the other side, and he really does always meet the need. It's just true. Like even when I don't think God ordains disappointment, but I do think that he can perfect it and make it okay again, and I think that he can always use it to glorify himself. And so whatever you guys are going through lockdown, or whenever you're listening to this, it's like God can use whatever you're going through right now. He can use your emotional health journey, he can use your spiritual journey, he can use your relationship journey he'll always perfect it if you give it and just yield to him, like give way to him. And sometimes giving way, like I remember when I lived in America, they had the word yield on the floor, and I didn't even know what it meant.
I was like, what's happening?
What is yield? I had to Google it. And it means
stop. I think I know.
Give way.
Drove there for 3 years.
It means give way. And I remember that I was talking to my mate last week, and I was just saying, actually, that's really powerful, because when you give way, all the other cars are going past, and you can think they're going ahead of me, they're having their time, and giving way is it feels like an insecure time, but actually when we give way to God, he allows us to move and step out at the right time. So if you're going through something hard right now, or if you're just feeling a bit deflated, or like you're missing your chance. You're actually giving way for God to do what he needs to do in your heart. And it might feel like a season of pause. You're just giving way for him to move, and then you will have your season where you can come out and move. But yeah, I guess that's my encouragement, that as you finish like listening to this podcast, that you just be able to be more comfortable in your own skin, whatever that looks like, even if that's been silly or been more serious. Like sometimes you and I can both use humor as a cover up for actually how my therapist said that to me was that Anna, so my therapist said to me was that, Anna, you definitely present yourself to be a very strong person, but really you're really tender on the inside. And I really am. I'm so soft on the inside, but I know I can present and come across as I've got it all together, I'm really strong. But actually it's all right to have a cry, it's okay to feel really tender. So whatever, like engage with that emotion. If you're thinking I need to be I need to be strong as in I need to put it together, but actually I need to use my voice, or maybe it's I'm going to just lean into being really tender today, and that's okay, and just listening to those needs.
And it's doing that, and it's being powerful with God, isn't it? It's like we get to co-labour with him, so he's not like this is all up to you now. This is not like an independent journey. This is not a journey void of God. It's like this is very much a journey with him. So I very much see this whole thing like he's absolutely at the centre of it. He's absolutely by my side. He's absolutely within my heart. Like he's the absolute foundation of who I am and what I need. So it's getting to be powerful with him because he really trusts us. Like as much as we trust him, he trusts us. So he trusts us to make great decisions. But sometimes we make terrible decisions, but there doesn't need to be shame in that because he's not putting it there. Like he doesn't see you any less for messing up. He doesn't see you any less for not being perfect because he never expected it.
Yeah, absolutely. There was something that, I can't remember the lyric, but I listened to a song the other day and it basically says, I can never let him down because I wasn't holding him up anyway. Like we're not holding Jesus up, he's holding us up, so we can never let him down because we're not carrying him. He carries us. So if you make a great decision, amazing, but you can't do anything to make him love you more, and you can't do anything to make him love you less. You just loved. So I just bless you guys, whoever is listening to this, if there's been one part of this that's blessed you or encouraged you, just know that you're loved as you are. There's no shame. God's got so much mercy and grace and love for you. Will you bless us as we go?
That's a good way to finish, isn't it? I just bless your journey of your identity. I bless who you are. I bless who you're not yet as well, and for you to be kind to yourself, and for you to have compassion and self-compassion when you need it. To know that you're doing a great job, and just as you are, is enough. Loving yourself is one of the most amazing gifts you can give those around you as well. So this is never a selfish journey. I think so often, and especially as Christians, if you're a Christian, absolute helicopter landing to give you a blessing. Sorry, I'm just blessing the audience. But loving yourself is an amazing gift to give the world, and I think it's been difficult for the Christian community to accept loving ourselves because it's hang on a minute, we should be loving everyone else. It's absolutely.
That is loving.
I agree, we should be doing that, but if you don't love yourself, how are you going to love others well? So learn to love yourself and love others really well. So bless you. Thanks for listening. And
see you next time.
We're on to the news after this. See you next time.
Can use that for. Bye guys.
Bye.